All right, welcome everyone to Donovan and Dino on this Monday afternoon, a little aftermath show following the Browns' 38-7 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. We do this every Monday. I'm joined by the voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan, and Jimmy, kind of a sobering afternoon in Pittsburgh for the Browns yesterday, I thought. Just the realization is while the Browns are better, they still have a ways to go.
Yeah, they really do. There's no doubt about that. I think pertaining to the game, I think Baker Mayfield and the Browns, but specifically Baker, he broke the first commandment. If you're going to go over there and be competitive and try and beat the Steelers at Heinz Field, you cannot turn the ball over. And not only did he turn it over, but he turned it over early, and he turned it over the worst way in a pick six that put them behind 10-0. And really, Dino, for all intents and purposes at that point, it really was almost game, set, and match at that point, because that really, and it has for so many years, it sets off an avalanche for the Steelers defensively just to tee off, and more things follow. And maybe not so much in the way of turnovers, although he threw another pick in the game, but it's in, hey, listen, we're up 10 points. We're just going to rush him all day long. We're going to do it from all different standpoints. It's going to come out of the secondary. It's going to come from both wings of the defense. It's going to come through the middle of the defense. But we're going after him because we feel we can get there, and we already have a 10-point lead. So as far as the game is concerned, I think pretty early it was evident that Pittsburgh had the upper hand. Now, as far as everything else is concerned, as you look down the road, I think that everybody right now, we need to pump the brakes on the thought that the Browns are going to be the best team in the AFC North, because we've had two opportunities to play against the best in the AFC North, and there are two of them, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and albeit both were on the road, but they're not typical road games because of the lack of crowd. So that atmosphere kind of evens things out if you're the away team. But the fact that you lose both of those games by over 30 points, 32 in Baltimore, 31 in Pittsburgh, the fact that both of those games were over by the end of the first half tells you there's a pretty sizable gap between the Browns and those two teams if you're talking about the division. But the fact of the matter is, you can still make the playoffs, and I think that would be a huge accomplishment, a monumental accomplishment for the Browns, a historical accomplishment for the Browns. You just have to win the winnable games, and there are a lot of winnable games remaining on their schedule. So I don't think it's a good result yesterday. It is a sobering result yesterday, but it's very real, I think, with what's going on right now. But there's a lot of season left, and there are a lot of wins out there, and I think that there still is a very concrete ability for the Browns to make the playoffs, and that's where I think they should go.
You know, Jimmy, I thought about what you said in our show last week about the turnovers, because in Pittsburgh, they're so opportunistic. And a lot of times when, most times you're out there, it's that 80,000, seat crowd and the terrible towels and all that intimidation. In this case, they didn't need that. They just needed to get that early lead, like you said, to basically unleash the blitz. But it has a psychological effect on you, doesn't it, when you fall behind via the turnover?
Yeah, it really does. And I think that a lot of teams now, Dino, are going to school on how do you play against Baker Mayfield, because I think we can all agree in his rookie year, when he finally took over the job and took it to the end of the season, there was a lot of exciting stuff, naturally, and he was able to do pretty much what he wanted to do, and I don't think anybody really had a book on him at that point in time. I mean, they can go back and they can look at the Oklahoma stuff and then try and put it into the NFL, and the Browns were incorporating some of that, but people needed an off season to kind of figure it out. So I think that's what's been going on, and I think certainly the Steelers are saying, listen, we don't want him rolling out, and we're going to cut him off from doing those bootlegs and rollouts. We're going to do what Indianapolis did in the second half of the game a week ago when the Browns beat the Colts, and that was they just started shooting people to the area that he was going to roll to, and then he had to stop in his tracks. We want him to stay in the pocket. We want to defeat him there and make him uncomfortable, and I think that happened. And then, like you say, when it's in your mind that they've already taken a pick off of you and taken it back all the way for a touchdown, it just really takes everything off schedule. but it made him very, very uncomfortable throwing the ball all day long. Even when he would complete a pass, it just didn't have the typical zing and assuredness that he's had in the past. So it really does become a feeding frenzy over there when the game starts the way it did yesterday.
Of course, you're playing the Steelers, and of course, Mayfield had the rib injury. But should fans be a little concerned that now we're in year 3 of Baker as a starting quarterback in the NFL, plenty of experience in just about every situation. He's still making rookie-type mistakes into where, his decision-making, whether or not to throw the ball away, whether or not to, whether his reads, things like that. Should that be a concern, or is it still part of this maturing process, the making of a starting NFL quarterback?
Well, I will say one thing. He's been in a different system every year, and so that's an adjustment. I mean, he's had new head coaches. He's had new offensive coordinators every year. The last couple of years, his offensive coordinator has been his new head coach. So everybody is bringing a new system at him, and that's one part of the problem. And you have to give him a little leeway on that to experience that and to get more comfortable with it. I mean, Roethlisberger's been in basically the same system for 17 years now with the Steelers. So that's number one. I give him a little leeway on that. But it's a problem. The interception factor becomes a problem because now we're seeing it rise again. 2 against Indianapolis, 2 more yesterday. And remember, there was a third one that Joe Hayden picked off, but it was discounted and nullified because of penalty. So that's a problem. His accuracy issue becomes a problem again. But then you have to go to the root of the problem. Is the problem that he's not comfortable throwing from the pocket? Does it extend even further? And is it because he can't see from the pocket? And a lot of people are wondering about that. Is that why he has to roll out so much? If that is the case, then yeah, that is a worrisome situation because he's not going to be able to roll out all as much as he wants to, or we want him to, because he's so effective. That is his strength, throwing the ball on the run. I think we all know now what are his strengths. His strength is he's able to really throw the ball on the run. Now, if it's because he has to do that, then that becomes a problem because you're really going to limit things doing your offense that way. If you have to construct an offense and it has to be based around the fear that he's not comfortable in the pocket, then that is worrisome, I think, going on in the future. But if this is just a fact of him not being comfortable with the new offense and it's another new offense for him, well, then time maybe will heal that. But there are some, I think, nights that we worry about this overnight and wonder, is he going to be okay coming out of this?
Yeah. I think we all hoped after the Cowboy game that the Browns would be able to still run the football effectively with Kareem Hunt, who was the NFL's leading rusher a couple of years ago in Kansas City, but still have that top-rated running attack going. The simple fact, Jimmy, he's your adopted son. Nick Chubb is very hard to replace, and to have both Chubb and Hunt at the same time is an integral part of what the Browns are trying to do in 2020, and not having one of them in there changes the way the offense runs. It just does.
Yeah. Well, it was a great 1-2 punch. There's no doubt about it. Very unique in the league, very powerful, probably the best set of running backs in the NFL. Just an embarrassment of riches, really, to have both of those running backs on the same team in the same offense. It was tremendous when it was healthy, okay? It is not healthy right now. Chubb is out, and Kareem Hunt's hurt. So the 1-2 punch is really a half a punch because you don't have Chubb and you don't have Kareem Hunt at 100%. And I think there's a new injury to Hunt, too. I mean, I think he's had the groin injury that is tough to get over, especially when you're a running back and you're doing the kind of running and the kind of work that he does in the offense. But right at the end of the first quarter yesterday, he took a shot on that shoulder that really gave him a great deal of discomfort in the end of the first quarter into the second quarter time period. And you see more time now that they have to keep him over on the sidelines. And now you're getting a little bit more of Dearness Johnson. And, of course, when it really wasn't a game anymore, you got some Dontrell Hilliard. So that powerful running back situation that was unstoppable now is not really even near what it was, because you don't have Chubb and you're not going to have him for 3 or 4 more weeks. And you really don't have Kareem Hunt at 100%. He might be at 50% right now.
Right. As we do this show here on a Monday afternoon, we're hearing reports now, and this is a surprise. This has been a soap opera since the 2019 season ended. David Njoku wants to be traded. Wants to be traded by the deadline on November 3rd. So 2 weeks from tomorrow. It seemed like this had been kind of taken care of during the course of training camp, that he had a role to go with the other 2 tight ends, Brian and obviously Hooper, but he's not happy, obviously, per Mary Kay's report. And at some point, the Browns are going to have to figure out what they want to do there. But they may not have 3 tight ends with Njoku much longer, I guess, is the gist I took from the story.
Yeah, that's not very surprising. I thought you were going to tell me that after further evaluation, Al Gore did actually win the election a few years ago. The David Njoku thing does not shock me a great deal. The Gore thing would have been quite a story. He's not happy. There's no doubt about it. He's obviously not happy because they went out. I think it started, Dino, with the fact that I think he was very happy when Freddie Kitchens and John Dorsey exited the building. I think he thought fresh start. But Austin Hooper was signed for as much money as he was signed. And I think he wasn't very happy when they drafted Bryant in the 4th round. And they like Steven Carlson. They really do. And remember, they have a fullback. Okay.
That's
so
right.
All of that probably eliminated his opportunity to be on the field a lot. And then he got hurt and he missed a bunch of time. I just think that I think that this keeps happening no matter what the coaching staff is. I know the coaching staff last year, imagine now, he was a healthy scratch for the last couple of games of the regular season last year. He had healed enough that he was able to come back, but he was a healthy scratch, which meant that there was a performance problem or a commitment problem. And I don't know if that's the situation here, but he's just not making it here. There's no doubt about it. Now, he's an attractive candidate, for teams out there. Philadelphia, Zach Ertz, I believe, is hurt now. He's going to be out a number of weeks. But he is a first-round draft choice. He still falls under that category, and I think the Browns would still like to get something in return for him. But do they go into the week every week and say, listen, we got to have a big day from David Njoku? I don't think those days are happening anymore with this coaching staff and certainly the coaching staff at the end of the year last year. So it probably would be better.
Yeah. All that said, now the Browns will stay in the division this coming Sunday and head to Cincinnati to deal with the Bengals. And it just was interesting to me as the Browns-Steelers game was unfolding, watching how the Bengals just jumped out early on the Colts, the team that the Browns had just seen, and then lost the lead and ended up losing to Indianapolis. But we saw, listen, Joe Burrow can put points on the board, and it may be another one of those first to 30, first to 35 goes on to win Sunday, and the Browns offense has got to pick it back up after a tough go yesterday.
Well, I think the Bengal defense is a little bit different than the Steeler defense, but you're right. They're going to have to go out there. They're going to have to score points. I also think that the Browns defense probably, and this may be surprising to hear this, but I think the Browns defense is playing better now than it was at the time of week 2, that Thursday night game against Cincinnati. And it should get a little bit healthier this week. I think, for instance, Ronnie Harrison would probably clear concussion protocol, and I would assume he would probably be available for that game. And I like him a lot in the back of that secondary. There probably is a shot that Carl Joseph might get back into the fray too. He's been out the last couple of weeks with a hamstring issue. But having said that, you're right. Offensively, I think the Browns just need to get back in rhythm. And really, I hate to single the guy out, but it's all about the quarterback and getting him back in a good frame of mind. They have to get him healthier physically, and more importantly, they have to get him healthier mentally, because I think right now he's struggling. That's a nightmare type situation, what happened in Pittsburgh yesterday, and he's got to get over that. And maybe the Bengals game will be the right timing, as it was post the Baltimore loss after the opening game of the season, and they lost to Baltimore, and they picked up the win against Cincinnati. It's all available to him. He just has to get back to playing comfortably once again and just getting the ball to the right people at the right time.
Last thought on that, and as we wrap up here on Donovan and Dino. I thought Kevin Stefanski handled Mayfield pretty well yesterday. You know, Kevin admitted some of his play calls could have been better, but I thought he handled when to pull Mayfield pretty well and bring in Case Keenum. You know, people wanted to bring in Keenum at halftime and things like that. But there is something to be said for trying to stay with your guy long enough to try to give him confidence to the point when you just say, okay, I'm going to pull the plug. That's it. We're done. On to Cincinnati. It's a tough thing to do. I thought Stefanski did okay with it. To try to maintain the confidence of his quarterback.
Well, I think had he not engineered that touchdown drive, which ended in the touchdown pass to Higgins, I think he might have pulled him at that point. But they had scored a touchdown. They were going to get the ball back at the start of the second half. So maybe they were going to get something going. But I really believe that probably that last touchdown drive before halftime and the touchdown to Higgins kept him in the game at that point, because he had still taken a pretty good physical beating at that time. He had been knocked down a lot. He had been sacked. He had been hit just about on every pass play. He had the 2 interceptions already in the game. It was going to be a rough save for him, but he did give him the opportunity to come up. It just works. I mean, they just couldn't convert on those 4th down plays, 4th and short a couple of times. And there was going to be nothing more that was going to get accomplished in the afternoon. And considering the fact that he's sore and he was very limited in practice last week, and I don't know, they feel he might do a little bit more this week, but who knows? Case Keenum hadn't played since December of last year, so it didn't hurt to get him in and get him the feel of the game, because that could become an option for them if Mayfield gets hurt again. I mean, sore ribs are sore ribs for a long time. He may not feel physically better again until at least after the bye week. So I agree with you, though. I think he gave him every opportunity to try and rectify the situation and go out on a positive note. It just wasn't going to happen yesterday.
Yeah. Well, it's always positive to talk to you at win or lose on a Monday, Jimmy. I always appreciate the time here on Donovan and Dino. We'll see you coming up at, I know you'll be popping in on the 5 and then certainly at 6 on What Matters Most on Channel 3 on 3 News, Jimmy. Always appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks, Dino.